Ever get that feeling, like, wow, real life is way crazier than anything you could make up?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We're diving into a case today that proves that point for sure.
Yeah.
The Bennett family massacre.
Oh, that one's rough.
It's 1984, Aurora, Colorado. Picture this, okay? A totally normal family. Bruce and Deborah Bennett, 2 little girls. Melissa, she's 7. Vanessa, just 3 years old. They own a furniture store, got a nice house, living the dream, right?
The American dream, yeah.
But January of 84, that dream, it becomes a total nightmare.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You think about cases like this and it shatters that feeling of safety we try to hold on to. Like, you hear about these terrible crimes, but you never think it could happen to you.
Or like in your neighborhood, right?
Exactly. But the Bennett story, it's a huge reminder that this stuff can happen anywhere. Doesn't matter how perfect things might seem.
It's like that childhood moment when you realize monsters might be real. Like, you're never quite the same.
Oh, absolutely. It changes your whole perspective.
But before we go too deep into the dark stuff, let's talk about little Vanessa, because amidst the horror, her story is one of, incredible resilience. Not only did she survive this attack, but she went on to live a full life. Got married, had kids, the whole 9 yards.
It really is amazing when you think about it. Like, to go through something so traumatic and come out the other side, finding joy, finding meaning, it really shows the strength of the human spirit. And it also highlights how complex this whole case is, the darkness of the crime, but then Vanessa's light, her ability to rise above it all.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. But okay, let's rewind a bit, go back to that night in January. The crime scene, it was just horrific. Bruce and Deborah, they were found beaten to death. Yeah. Melissa too. And little Vanessa, she was barely clinging to life.
The level of violence was just unbelievable. The weapon, a hammer, just imagine the rage, the pure brutality. It went way beyond just a simple crime, This felt personal. It shook Aurora to its core.
And then for decades, the case went cold. Can you imagine the fear that hung over the community, knowing that whoever did this was still out there somewhere?
Unsolved crimes, especially ones this violent, they stick with the community, They become part of the story, part of the fear. It makes people uneasy, like they can't trust that good will always win.
Definitely. But you know what I find fascinating? How science is being used to crack open these cold cases nowadays. And this is where the Bennett case takes a turn. Decades later, enter genetic genealogy. This is like that whole Golden State Killer thing, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That was a landmark case. It blew the doors wide open for using this kind of tech to solve other cold cases, and the Bennett case was no exception. Basically, they built a family tree, but using DNA. They found a distant relative of the killer in a DNA database, then went step by step, tracing family lines to narrow it down.
Hold on. So they used DNA to find a family member and worked backward from there.
Exactly. It's super complicated, takes a lot of expertise, but it's changing the game when it comes to these cold cases. And in the Bennett case, it led them right to Alexander Christopher Ewing.
Okay, so they got this name, Alexander Christopher Ewing. What next?
Well, this is where it gets even wilder. Ewing, he was already locked up, serving time for other violent crimes.
Whoa, wait a minute. So this guy's already behind bars. What kind of crimes are we talking here?
He had a whole history of violence, including, and get this, a brutal hammer attack in Nevada, super similar to the Bennett case.
Oh, that's chilling.
Yeah.
But if he was already in prison, why did it take so long to link him to the Bennetts?
See, that's the thing about this genetic genealogy. It was brand new back then when the Bennetts were attacked, like in its early stages.
Yeah.
It took a while, years even, for the tech to catch up, to be good enough to use in these investigations.
So it's not just the science itself, but how they use it, how it fits into the whole justice system.
You got it. And that brings up a whole bunch of other complicated stuff. Think about the ethics of it all. We're talking about using people's DNA, their family's DNA, to maybe solve crimes, even if those people themselves aren't suspects.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Big questions about privacy, consent, and could this stuff be misused,
I mean, you think about the trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
Catching the bad guys, but also protecting people's rights. It's a lot to unpack. But in this case, sounds like they finally got their guy, so it was worth it.
Yeah, they did. In 2021, almost 40 years after the Bennett family was attacked, Alexander Christopher Ewing was convicted of their murders.
40 years. Wow. That's almost a lifetime. Imagine what that must have been like for Vanessa to finally get justice for her family.
I can't even begin to fathom what she went through, all the emotions, the relief, the pain, maybe even some closure, but also knowing that nothing can ever really undo what happened.
Justice, but also the fact that lives were changed forever.
Exactly. And for Aurora, it was a moment of truth, you know? The Bennett case had been this dark cloud hanging over them for so long. Ewing's conviction, it brought some relief, but those scars, they run deep.
Yeah, it's like a wound that heals, but you can still see the scar, you know? This case, it really makes you think about some big questions.
Oh.
I bet for you listening, the science part is just, wow. This whole thing, tracing a killer through their family tree, like genetic detective work.
It really is incredible. It makes you realize we're all connected in ways we never even thought about. And for solving crimes, man, this is huge.
No more hiding for the bad guys, right? But then it also makes you wonder, how do we balance catching criminals with protecting everyone's privacy? Where's the line?
That's the tough one, isn't it? As this genetic genealogy stuff becomes more common, those ethical questions are going to keep popping up. No easy answers there.
It's like opening up, what's that, Pandora's box, right? All these possibilities, good and bad. But at the end of the day, the Bennett case, it's not just about the science, is it? It's about the victims, the people left behind, and that long road to justice. What do you think? What should our listener really take away from all this?
I think it's the reminder that even when things are really, really bad, there's still hope. Like with Vanessa, she could have let that trauma, that awful night, define her. But she didn't. She chose to live, to build a life, find happiness.
It shows you just how strong people can be. Like no matter what life throws at you, you can overcome it.
You got it. And it reminds us that even though there's so much bad in the world, there's good too. Courage and people fighting for what's right. That's what makes us human.
Man, that's a great way to put it. So to you listening, we hope this deep dive into the Bennett case gave you more than just the facts. We hope it made you curious about the world, the power of science, and how strong the human spirit can be. Thanks for being here with us.